confine yourself to our royal suite at the Waldorf Astoria.
Stand up, Russ. Now look at him. Isn't it hard to believe he's only 50? Now this lovely young lady to his right is his wife, Shauna. And Shauna will celebrate her birthday in a few days. Shauna, are you 21 yet?
No.
I wanted to have a sign in front of Shauna that says, I'm the wife, not the daughter, she's older. But we thought that might be tacky. But
Actually, she's 9 months younger.
she's 9 months younger. Gee whiz. Russ, I need you for a moment. I'm not doing pins on your wife. Now, sitting at the table with Russ and Shauna, on his left are his mother Jeannie and father Don, and on Shauna's right, her mother Debbie and father Harold. So this is the family group. Now, Russ, is Terry here?
Yeah.
That's a brave lady. We'll tell you about her later. I haven't known Russ as long as some of you, but I know him a little differently. You see, I moved in across the road. So I kind of see him in a different light than the rest of you, and a couple things I'd like to share. One of the things that I have observed over the last few years is Russ seems to have thrown more rods into the lake than he has caught fish out of. Because I think about a week ago he went fishing again, and the first thing he did was throw a rod in. So that's his fishing luck. The other thing is, I asked him one time, if you catch some fish, will you share? And he said, sure. Well, a few weeks later on the front lawn, I found the bones and the head from a rather large fish. Now that isn't quite what I had in mind, but I guess I shouldn't complain too much. What's going on right now, if you'll notice, is our hospice volunteers are bringing out your dinner. And your first roaster is ready to go. And Bob, do you want to come in and set this up? And here's Bob Myers from Tom Bar Incorporated to start us off.
I put on my glasses here.
Borrow mine?
Yeah, you'll need them in a minute. First of all, I'd like to say I'm Jewish, and my dad always taught me, if you don't have nothing good to say about nobody, don't say nothing. So I'm not going to say much. On a serious note, some of us all remember the show This Is Your Life. Some of us don't. I'm sure you do, Russ, as old as you are. Well, Russ, this is your life. Actually, Russ was born in Meridian, Mississippi, and his real name is Rufus Ezel McGrady V. In 1934, one of 11 siblings, 8 boys and 3 girls. We have looked long and hard, and we found your family, Russ.
Oh, good.
We found Mama Bean. She's 104 years old now. And we also found Earl Winthrop Aloysius Bean McGrady III, your oldest brother.
Oh.
With a lot of hard work and money, he's here tonight. I picked him up at the bus station this morning at 1:55 a.m. Russ, come up here a minute, please. This is Russ's oldest brother, Earl Winthrop Aloysius Bean, which he hasn't seen in 34 years.
Is that right? Where is it?
Earl, would you come out here, please?
All right, Earl. Oh! It's so good to see you.
I appreciate that, man. I tell you, I miss you so much. But I got some good news and bad news for you.
All right.
Now, you need to brace yourself.
Okay.
Cousin Mitty.
Yeah.
Now, Mama B sent me with his letters.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it's real bad, but there's good. Cousin Mitty has passed away. She got hit by a runaway fertilizer truck. Oh, it was bad. It was like,
Yeah.
oh, it was horrible.
Doctor,
Oh, it was horrible. Grandma Francis was out there feeding the pigs. And Lord Almighty, if she didn't trip over a bush, fall down, bust her head on a rock, and pass out in a face first in a pile, a pig drop. But don't feel bad now. Everybody at the funeral said that was a real shitty way to go. Now, it even got worse. Cousin Percy,
Cousin Percy.
her nephew, Leroy, he done turned funny on us. He walks around all the time going,
Hi. Hey there, big fella. You looking for a date tonight?
That's family.
I tell you, well, now you really got to realize that where we come from, it's pretty much a straight pole.
Yeah.
It's a bad deal. But now there's good news at the end of all this. I've got me a job.
Really?
Oh yeah, working with that Girls Gone Wild film crew. Yeah, I tell you what, I love them booby movies. They're real nice, man. I tell you what, man, they get to live in them churches. If I just get all worked up, so it drives me up a wall. It's horrible. It's terrible. But the good news in all this, I'm gonna move in with you.
Oh, well, good.
Yeah, I figured I'd just commute to the movie. I mean, to the lake. Take care of all that. I'll just give me a job up there.
All right.
But you know, talking about all these movie movies, it reminds me of a story I need to tell about you.
Oh, okay.
You know, when I think about this dearly from time to time, when I think about my long lost brother, I haven't seen him so many years. It's bad. I remember when you were just a little boy, and you was coming down the road, old man Henry's house sitting up there. He used to sit on his front porch all the time. And you come rolling along with a roll of duct tape, and he says, Rufus, what are you doing with that duct tape? And you said, I'm going down to get me some dust with this duct tape. He said, you can't catch no dust with this duct tape. Well, long about sundown, I remember you come back through there with about 6 ducks strung up on a piece of duct tape. That's right, you remember that, don't you?
I remember, yeah.
Yeah, that was a good time. Well, it made him awful mad. He just grabbed his hat, flashed down, and Lord Almighty, he was all fired up. The next morning you come through there, and you had yourself a mason jar. That's right, you did. And he said, Rufus, where you going with that mason jar? And you said, I'm gonna get me some honey out the honeysuckles. And he said, oh Lord, Rufus, you can't get no honey out the honeysuckles. He said, oh man, Henry, I'll tell you what, I'll be back around sundown. Sure enough, he came back with a jar full of honey. And he was just so happy. Well, I tell you what, he was mad. He was real mad. Oh yeah, because he proved him right. He didn't like to be wrong. He wasn't no kind of man that liked to be wrong. You remember that? Well, the next day you come along with a piece of cane with a fuzzy thing on the end of it. And you said, Rufus, where you going with that piece of cane with the fuzzy thing on it? And you said, I'm going to get some pussy out the pussy willows. And he said, he says, let me get my hat. Rufus, this has been good, brother. I appreciate seeing you, man.
Well, it's good to see you, too.
Yeah, we'll see you later, man.
There we go.
Yeah.
Wow, it looks big from up here. Y'all enjoying your supper? Anybody not like supper? Not you, Russ.
I hadn't had any yet.
You can't eat till later. My name's Lori Youngblood, and I am the project coordinator for Hospice of the Hills. And because of you, we are able to do some great work at our office for our patients, for our terminally ill. Tonight, I'm just going to be introducing your roasters at first. Some of them want to talk, some of them don't, some of them's being forced. The one that we're forcing right now is Mr. Bill Wilcox. I think he's concentrating on things on the way up. He's got that look.
Nothing ever changes.
You can't ask him if you can say something.
There's not much to say when it comes to Russ. I wrote out a list of all the good things. As you can see, I have no list. There's a lot of bad things. Russ is a very, very funny person to run around with. When I say run around, like trips up to our tower site where we used to work on the transmitter in the middle of the night, whatever. If you want a one-man person to keep you entertained all the time, it was always Russ. There's several stories I could probably tell about Russ. None of them are true. As a matter of fact, there's not much truth anyway. But tonight, I have the auspicious, or whatever you want to say, of saying, hey, look at my table. Ex-people you've worked with, most of them, are members of their family, and one of your exes I have over there, see? Did you see that? You ought to hear some of the stories she's telling on you. You've heard them already? I heard a couple I hadn't heard before. Yeah. But anyway, Russ will do just about anything in the world to aggravate you, to come up and try to make you laugh. He'll do that too. It's hard for me to really say anything bad about him because he does have a way to make me laugh. But there's been several instances where he's pulled my leg many a time. When we used to sit across from each other in the morning, he was doing the party line, I was doing a community correspondence. He would always introduce me in my pink tutu. I should have worn it tonight. But I couldn't quite get into it. I don't know, I must have gained some weight or something. But I've had more and more people ask me, do I really wear a pink tutu to work? For Russell, I would, of course. Russell is, like I said, a great person to work around most of the time. He's been a lot of help with a lot of projects. We've smashed each other's fingers a few times working on projects, different things around radio stations. But he did do one thing to me that I don't know whether it's forgivable or not. I've thought about it many a time. When I found out that I was on the border of being a diabetic, one of the things Russell loves is pastry. He used to beg for pastry on the radio. People would bring him pastry, donuts and cookies and stuff all day long, right? Well, when I found out I was a borderline diabetic, I couldn't have that anymore. So what did my good friend do, right? He said, don't worry, Bill. I'll take care of it. I'll keep it out of your sight. You won't have to worry about it. He'd get on there in the morning and he said, I've just got to have something. In my emaciated state, he'd just almost cry on the radio, I've got to have something sweet. I'm so weak I can't stand it. Here they come with donuts and pastry. I've seen people that I didn't even know stop at the donut shop and buy him a dozen donuts and bring them out there. Did I get any of them? Bill, you can't have any. You know, I've got to take care of you, right? Well, I found out the truth one morning. He wasn't hiding them from me. He was eating them before I got there. You cannot imagine how much this person right here can eat. There is nothing from the mouth down to the feet. It's just one long tube. He can eat anything, everything all day long. He does it. He does a great job of it. I've never figured out why he doesn't put on weight. Unless there's a worm or something in there helping you, or tapeworm or whatever, or some other thing that's wrong. But I do want to say, Russ, I always enjoy being around you. You're always a lot of fun. You're always a lot of help when we do something together. And I've always enjoyed our friendship very much. As far as actually roasting you, it's hard for me to do. It's hard for me to say anything bad. But on the other side, it's also hard to say anything too good. But you've always been a good friend, and I've always enjoyed it. I appreciate being here tonight. And there's several other little stories I could probably tell, but some of them are a little risque, and I don't know whether I should get into that or not. Yeah? Well, you know, Russell, okay, I'll tell you what. I don't know whether I should tell this or not, but I will. Spike is here. It involves Mark. But now, Spike lived with Mark long enough to know that Mark's sense of humor is beautiful. You never know what he's going to do. This is a true story. I'm not making this up. Norma Sims worked at the radio station back then, and I've never seen Norma Sims break up and laugh as hard as I saw that day. This man's one-liner did it. I came in about 9 o'clock, and they're all buzzing around about this, buzzing around about that. Children, close your ears. Thank you. Well, Mark, of course, would get it to the radio station about 3 in the morning. Well, Russ would be there about 7 or 8, whenever he would get there. I usually got there about 9 back then, and they're all talking about Mark had gone to the bathroom, and he couldn't find his thing. whatever that means. True story, Spike. I know you've heard it, probably. Yeah, she's heard it. Well, it found out that Mark had got up that morning in the dark, put his clothes on, come to work. When he went to the bathroom to relieve himself, he had his underwear on backwards. So he couldn't figure out how to, you understand if you've worn men's underwear. That's the only way you'd understand it. So anyway, the joke was all day long after I got there, Russ was going around and he couldn't find his thing when he went to the bathroom. He went on and on and on and on about it. He couldn't find it, on and on and on. Well, he had everybody laughing about it, and he went on and on and on. Well, somebody had opened a can of Vienna sausages. One of them had fallen into the sink and down into the disposer. We didn't know that. We still to this day do not know who opened the can of Vienna sausages. But Norma's back there and Russ are back in the kitchen. Norma looks over there and she looks down there and she says, Russ, I think I found it. Russell walks over there, and I tell you, this is the exact one-liner. He said, you look down there, not too big. 4 o'clock that afternoon, Norma finally quit laughing. But he would come up with one-liners like that all the time. And he'd keep you laughing. He's always an entertainer, and he'd always do that. And Russ, I love you, man. I can't really say too much bad about you. I just love you. Stay the way you always are. Keep your one-liners coming because you never know what's coming out of that mouth right there. That is, if there's time for something to come out of it when he says something, if he's not eating.
Kind of makes you look like a Vienna sausage a little different too, I might say. Not sure we'll eat any of those anymore. Thank you, Bill. And by the way, that's from a man that says, I'm shy. I don't want to get up in the front of people and talk. He did all right, didn't he? Our next roaster, Philip Carey.
Got to get prepared. First of all, I'm Philip Carey. I know most of you here. If you don't know me, I work with Russ down at KCWD. I've worked with him at other stations before, so I know him pretty well around work, and we're going to talk a little bit about that in just a moment. I had some notes. I had, first of all, some good points that Russ had, but not going to use those. And I had a few of the bad characteristics here. But I do want to talk a little bit about Russ and the radio station and what it's like to work with Russ. Now, a lot of people, if you hadn't been in radio, you kind of think, boy, radio would be a great job to have. You go in for 4 hours, you talk a little bit on the radio, and then you go home. Well, that's not really true. There's a lot of other things that go on. A lot of other work. There's commercials, there's remotes, there's production, there's all kinds of stuff you got to do. Actually, with Russ, that is pretty much it. He just kind of shows up for a little while and goes home. Now, Russ has to arrive at work bright and early at 10 a.m. So we can expect to see him somewhere between 10:15 and 10:45. The first thing he does when he gets there is he takes a coffee break. And then after that, he has to go outside and have a smoke break. And on a good day, Russ can stretch that first coffee and smoke break all the way up till lunchtime at noon. And I'm not really trying to say Russ is lazy or anything, but when he first started working there, one of the first things he did, everybody else that smokes would go outside and stand at the back and have a cigarette, come back in, go to work. Well, the first thing Russ did, he went out and he got a park bench and installed it outside to sit in while he took his smoke break. Well, back to the grindstone after lunch, about an hour and a half for Russ usually. He goes on the air at 2 o'clock. You probably notice you don't hear him talk until somewhere around 2:20. Now from 2:20 until about 6 o'clock, Russ opens the mic, he talks for a few seconds, he gives the forecast a few times each hour. And I've added it up, and in that 4-hour span, Russ actually works about a total of 8 minutes. Sometimes 9, I'll give you that. Now that gives him 3 hours and 52 minutes to smoke and drink coffee. Russ adapts the policy of work of why do today what you can put off until next week. That's just an idea of what it's like at work with Russ. But enough about work. I want to talk about a few of the things about Russ O'Neal, the person. Now, Russ actually looks pretty good for a man that's turning 72 today. Now, I remember last summer, we had a company float trip down on the Buffalo River. We were floating along, my wife nudged me, and she said, "Look at that chimpanzee up there in that canoe." I looked up there ahead, and it was Russ. He had his shirt off. But you got to give Russ some credit. I mean, he did manage to persuade a much younger, attractive woman to marry him.
I was drunk.
Oh. Well, that would explain that part. I know when Russ and Shauna go to restaurants, the waitress usually asks him what him and his daughter would like to eat and drink. That was when they first got married. Now they're asking him what his granddaughter would like. But I gotta admit, Russ is pretty much a ladies' man. I've been to lunch with him several times. There always seems to be women coming up to him at the table, saying hi, giving him a big hug. Now, most of those women were around back when Marconi invented the radio in 1897, but nonetheless, they are women. I want to finish up tonight with the top 10 list I've written for Russ. This would be the top 10 changes Russ O'Neal would make if he ran the radio station. Top 10 changes. Number 10, replace the fudge brownies in the vending machine with quick-acting Viagra. Number 9, Casual Fridays will now be known as Clothing Optional Day. Number 8, all female employees must be willing to rub ointment on Russ's problem areas. Number 7, employees may choose a regular paycheck or an equal amount of 2 for the price of 1 Winston cigarette coupons. Number 6, instead of cash bonuses, employees will receive bags of aluminum cans that Russ steals from Tom Bar Recycling. Number 5, Harrison Goblin's football and basketball broadcasts will now be replaced with live coverage of women's Jello wrestling. Russ will provide the play-by-play himself. Number 4, the morning Beatles music break will be replaced by Russ's favorite, the Big Joe Polka Show. Number 3, the radio station drug screen policy is now the yours, mine, and ours policy. Number 2, in addition to the normal holiday days off, the third Monday of each month is now known as Hangover Day. And the number one change Russ O'Neal would make if he ran a radio station is all Russ, all the time. Thank you very much, and happy birthday, Russ. Those were Russ's good points.
Thanks, Philip. That was hilarious. Some things I didn't have any idea about, now I do. And I look at Russ in a whole new light now. Okay, our next roaster that you have on the list was unable to make it today because I believe his wife's not feeling well, but Mr. Rick Baker was going to come and talk about Russ, but he's not able to get here tonight. So Mr. Jamie Holt will be our next roaster.
don't know where Russ went, but oh, he's in the bathroom. Well, that's kind of normal for him. But I've known Russ for he's heard all these stories because he was part of them. But I've known Russ for a long time, and we've worked together at several different radio stations, and we work together now at KCWD, and he's a pleasure to be around. But there's a couple of stories that I'll tell. One, and I didn't make any notes because Russ is just a one-of-a-kind person. So, but Russ one day had gone to McDonald's, and he was walking out, and these kids were playing up in the big, Shauna knows, these kids were playing up in the slide and all that up there, and Russ hears this, "Hey, old man! Hey, old man!" Well, he's I'm in my 40s, back then he didn't, so he's walking, and all of a sudden these kids are just hollering at him, "Hey, old man! Hey, old man!" And he looks up there, and all of a sudden these kids goes, "Hey, he's looking!" And at that time, Russ, remember, he thought, he said, "They're talking about me." So Philip talking about him being older than Sean and all that, I think a lot of people see that other than just us. But those kids were making fun of him, which was a hoot. I told the McDonald's story, Russ. But anyway, another one is Russ and I were at a party one night at a friend of ours up in Missouri. This friend of ours happens to be very wealthy, and we were at his house, and we were sitting out in his hot tub with a bunch of other people there, and we're sitting there, we're smoking Cuban cigars that Bob Mitchell had gave us. So we're smoking Cuban cigars and having a drink, and Russ looks at me and he says, "I wonder what the poor people are doing." And I looked at him and I said, "Well, here we are." But I could go on and on about stories with Russ and working with Russ, but all in all, Russ is really a good guy, and it used to be he always dreaded me calling him because he always figured it was something he's going to have to come do at my house, because anytime I had a project, it was Russ, and he was always there to help and lend a helping hand and to do stuff, and anytime I moved, boy, he was right there to help. And Russ, I appreciate you, and I just want to say happy birthday to you, buddy.
Are you adding more for them to have next time, Russ?
Reminded him of an event.
Oh, did you? Well, you'll get your turn too, when it's all over. Thank you, Jamie. Our next roaster is going to be Mr. Tom Arnold.
This ought to be good, Russ. I've worked on this for 2 days.
You ain't back.
Well, I do have to say that it's good to be able to come out and celebrate Russ's birthday. He's a great guy. I'm going to start off that way because the rest of the stuff is just pure crap I'm going to say about him. And, most of the time you think about radio people able to get up and speak in public, but this is not our favorite thing to do. We're usually behind a microphone where nobody sees us. I tend to get a little nervous. I take Prozac for depression, also to help calm me down. I sometimes get it confused with my Prozac and my Viagra. We should know in a minute which one I took tonight. I saw Bob Myers earlier tonight in the bathroom. Bob was in there going through the trash. I said, "Bob, what the hell are you doing?" He said, "I'm looking for cardboard." He said, "If I'm going to pay $25 for Russ, I want to get some money back off this thing." So tonight there'll be trash bags passed around. He would like to have all your metal, your paper goods, all that stuff put in the trash bag. Russ and I do disagree on the number of times he worked at our station. This is your third time, Russ.
Third, yeah.
You and I kind of have a dispute on the number of times I fired you. You say twice, I say once. But since this is your birthday, Russ, you're fired. Are you happy now?
I'm happy now.
All right. You know, when Russ first came to work for us, he had an ability to impersonate people. Bob Hope, Johnny Carson, he could sound just like them. He also had the ability to sound like me, which at the time I didn't know it, till one day he was kind of buzzing everybody on the intercom and just chewing them out left and right. And I didn't know what the hell was going on. You know, everybody was like staying away from me. And you know, what was really bad, my wife Mary worked down there, and he passed himself off to her as me. And I don't want to tell you what all he said to her, but it was cold around my house for 2 or 3 days. And you know, you need to know that Russ's real name is Russ Pearsall. It's not Russ O'Neal. And Russ, with some of the things you've done, I changed my name too. You know, for example, when Russ was in high school in Oklahoma, he won an award. And when he accepted it that night, he said, "I really don't deserve this." He said, "Of course, I've got hemorrhoids, and I don't deserve those either." And then you talk about Russ, about what he says and what he really means. And because Russ can tell you one thing, but he really means something else. Like if he says, "I'm going fishing," I mean, he's going to go drink himself stupid and stand by a stream with a stick in his hand and watch the fish go by safely. Yeah. That's Russ. When he says it's a good idea, he really means it'll never work, and I'll spend the rest of the day gloating, which he always tells me it's a great idea. And he told his wife, he said, "You know, you cook just like my mother. She used a smoke detector as a mealtimer too." And then when he tells Shawnee, he says, "I heard you." What he really means is, "I haven't got the foggiest clue to what you just said. I'm hoping I can bluff my way through it so you won't yell at me for the next 2 or 3 days." And he also told her one night, he said, "You know, I could never love anyone else but you." What he really meant was, "I'm used to the way you yell at me, and I realize it could be worse." And when Russ decides he's going to take her out to someplace fancy to eat, it's at a restaurant with no drive-through window. So that's Russ. Russ came in one day to work, and he really looked agitated. And I asked him, I said, "Russ, what is your problem?" He said, "Well, I got up this morning, I put on my shirt and a button fell off. I picked up my briefcase and the handle fell off." He said, "I'm so damn scared I can't even go to the bathroom." Russ is quite a talent. You know, he's actually better than what you normally find in a town the size of Harrison. Russ has a great gift. Unfortunately, he doesn't give it very often. But it's kind of like the guy said earlier, the people that work with Russ have come to appreciate him for his laid-back mannerisms, but Russ has got a big heart. Russ will help people in need, just like tonight, the benefits from this, coming out and saying good or bad things about Russ, benefits Hospice of the Hills. I've seen Russ go out of his way to help people, not very often, of course, but Russ is a pleasure to work with. And when Philip was talking about the smoke breaks and coffee breaks that Russ is always on, I'm usually out there with him. Russ always told one funny thing. Russ didn't tell it, but this is a true story. There was 2 or 3 of us at the station that smoked, and it was back in the wintertime, and I never allowed anybody to smoke in our building, so all of us smoked outside. It was wintertime, it was spitting snow out there, and it was about 10 degrees, and we were standing out there smoking, and the police car drove by, and one of the cops said, "We got a report about some people out here smoking dope." And Russ said, "No, there's some dopes out here smoking." And that was Russ and his one-liners. Russ, you're a great guy. Appreciate having you back for the 3rd time.
Okay, it's me again because Lori disappeared. All right, Next, I want to know, is there any volunteers out there that have any stories they'd like to share about Russ? Okay, come on, Rick. And the rest of you kind of think about it, like Darla.
I don't know Russ that well. I've been in the picture for about 3 years. I met him about that time. I showed up in Arkansas 9 years ago from Alaska. 28 years ago, my folks retired down here, and they told me about Dogpatch, and they told me about Newton County, and they told me about what happened here at the park and different things. And, you know, you got Daisy May and all that. You got Mundy Lane, guys. It's up in Harrison. Daisy May and Russ and Toby. That is one of the funniest things you'll ever hear. You'll hear Toby going, "Hey, would you please get your dog to take the skin back from that fish you caught?" It was a rock in the front yard. These two go at it. You listen to them on the radio. You listen to them go back and forth. Really don't know if he's ever caught a fish. You know, he gets on the radio and said he went fishing. I've never heard the story that he caught a fish. Did hear about, you haven't seen one? I heard a story about you guys picking up rocks on the point with your rods and reels. You know, you got to take some time and actually, you know, learn how to fish here in this lakes. But when these two get at it, he'll come over to the house. The story about him eating, oh my God, this guy can eat. The meal you guys are eating tonight, I've seen him polish it off all the time. But the one thing I can tell you about Russ over at Toby's house is if she's cooking and there's a bunch of people, Russ is there. And he likes to eat the food. But other than that, I'll tell you what, I've listened to him on the radio with the people around this town when he did the party line and whatnot all. He's one of the only people I know that can tell who a person is by their voice, but I'll tell you, if we walked up to him, you probably wouldn't know him. Happy birthday, you know. You're just lucky because you got retirement coming down the road, you know, like 2 weeks. And that.
I've got a 5-year-old and 8-year-old.
Oh, okay, there's another one, the 5-year-old, the 8-year-old. To watch Russ mow his lawn. Here's Russ going down, mowing his lawn with his little boy right behind him, mowing the lawn. And all day long. I mean, you go by his yard, Russ is mowing right behind his little boy. Hour later, you go by, the little boy's still walking behind Daddy. I'm going to get there. You got to show your son more than your butt. That's about all I had to say, and that I just had to get my 2 cents worth because these two are hilarious, and they're Newton County on Mundy Lane.
Do we have anyone else who would like to step up to the mic and say something about Russ? Bring it on. The ex wants to talk? Come on, Terry. Yeah. What a trooper.
When Russell told me what was going to happen tonight, he said, "I thought you might like to come and join in the fun." And for those of you who know who I am, hi, it's good to see you again. For those of you who don't know who I am his ex-wife. It's not always exes that get to roast their husbands on their birthday. There's usually a divorce court. I have a present for you later, too.
Oh.
So over the last couple of weeks, I made a couple of notes also. Page 1. Most of the stories I'm going to tell you tonight don't have a lot to do with radio. A few of them will. I can remember when we first had gotten married, we were sitting around at his mom and dad's house one night talking about baby names. And I had a cat that was named Thomas Don. As y'all know, his middle name is Don. And I called him Tommy. And I said, if I ever had a little boy, I'd like to name him Tommy. And he said, you can't do that. You've got a cat named Tommy. And his mom said, so? I used to have a dog named Rusty. Russell and I actually met in art class. And when I say met, I hold that term real loosely because when we went into class, everybody was settling into their seats. And no sooner did we get settled in, Russ was always up at the front of the class at the teacher's desk leaving. And I thought he was in the previous class. I didn't actually realize he was in my class. That's because he spent 3 years of high school in the dean's office. His grandmother told me on graduation, she said, I'm so happy that you two went together. She said, or he'd never have finished high school. And I thought, what do you mean? Well, I've come to find out that Russ spent most of his time in the dean's office, and I think the dean just gave him a diploma because he thought, oh my God, they're both graduating. What am I going to do with him if she's gone? So he just got him out of the school. But back to the fishing stories that you were talking about, and you didn't ever hear of Russ catching any fish? Well, there was one time that he did catch a fish, and it was back a long time ago, okay? It was a long time ago. We had gone to Oologah Lake fishing, and my idea of fishing is I take food, I take a book, and I take a pillow. They got 30 minutes to start biting, or I'm going to go read or go to sleep or eat. Well, Russ will stay out there as his die-hard self is, and he'll fish all night long. Well, I had no sooner given up, went in back into the car and was sleeping, and I hear this, and I look up, and he's standing there with a really beautiful fish. I mean, Russ, that big maybe? A little bigger. And I don't know what kind of fish it was. It had gills and 2 eyes, so it was a fish. Catfish, is that what it was? Okay. It was a pretty fish, as far as fish go. And if you'll read in your little pamphlet here, it says that he was an explorer scout. I'm not sure what part of the be prepared he flunked exactly, but I don't think he actually anticipated catching a fish that night either because he didn't have anything to put the fish in. But since I had stopped and got snacks, I had a paper bag. So he puts the fish in a paper bag and sets him back behind the wheel of the car. And he goes about fishing some more. Well, probably about midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, it starts raining. So Russ runs back to the car and he throws everything in the car and he hops in and he says, well, I guess that finishes up for tonight. He said, we'll just go on to the house. And I said, oh, okay, I'm half asleep. He starts up the car and he backs up and you hear this thump thump. And it was one of those MasterCard, the look is priceless, because his head just went. And I looked at him and I said, what was that? And he said, that was my fish. And he's right. When the fish started out, it was this big, but when he ran over it, it ended up being this big. And to add salt to the wound, when we got home, his dad was waiting up, and he says, well, did you catch anything? And I'm going, oh. I said, you know, I never realized that was true with fishermen, that they could start out this big and end up this big, but it's true, it works. I said, he ran over it. Are you okay?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Right after we moved here, well, actually, we hadn't actually moved here yet. We were still coming over and visiting my parents at the time. And we decided to go to Ozark Campground and go camping. Remember this one, don't you, Russ? Yeah. Is Kevin Thomas here tonight?
No, not.
Yeah. Well, I had told... My parents actually lived in Jasper, and for those of you who are familiar with the area, you know that you have to drive right past Bob's Market to get to Ozark Campground. And Bob's at the time was the only place in town to buy a fishing license. So before we left the house, I said, stop and buy your fishing license. Okay, I will. Well, he gets to the campground, jumps out of the car, grabs his fishing pole and tackle box, and heads off down to the water. And as he's leaving, I said, did you get your fishing license? He says, oh no, it'll be okay. I'll go back and get it later. Famous last words. He walks down to the water, does not even put the fishing pole in the tackle box down, and here comes the little game and fish truck. Well, I start hollering at him, get up here. And about that time, the game and fish officer steps out and goes. Well, they went over and had a little chat, and pretty soon Russ comes over to me, and at that time, money was really tight. I mean, we had enough to come over, you know, do a few things, go back. And he came over very sweetly, and he said, I need $30. Well, I'm chewing him up one side, spitting him out the other, and I mean, I don't think there was anything nice that I said to him at that point, but I was getting him the $30. So he goes back over and he hands it to the game and fish officer. Well, fast forward about 6 months later, and we're now living in Jasper, and this was one of the few times in my life that I hadn't actually worked, so I had befriended one of the neighbor ladies, and her name was Kathy Thomas, and I hadn't put two and two together yet. So I'm over at their house one day, and we're sitting there, and all of a sudden, I just turned and I looked at Kevin, and I didn't say anything. I just looked at him, and he grinned, and he said, I wondered when the light was going to come on. And I said, we kind of laughed about the day and everything, and he says, you know, he said, I really felt sorry for Russ that day when I told him it was $30 or he had to go to jail. And I said, go to jail? And he said, yeah. He said that he had $30 or he had to go to jail. I said, he didn't tell me about the go to jail part. He said, well, heck no. He said, as mad as you was, he said, you'd have let him go. I said, you damn right. But one story I have to tell also about Russ is back to the art class. For those of you, I don't know if any of you know that he does draw. He's good at artwork, and he's very creative, and I think that's one of the things that does help him in the radio station is he is a very creative person. And he does have a heart of gold, just like the others have said, and I'm very honored that we have been able to remain friends. You know, when most people get divorced, it's like daggers and, you know, whips and what have you.
That's why we're married.
Yeah, I'm getting to that story. We lived out up on Mount Sherman, and we had built a log cabin. And it was a neat log cabin. And we lived by choice without running water, electric, or telephone for 5 years. And our whole goal was to have it paid for and then put in the utilities. Well, in the morning time, we'd have to get up, 4 o'clock in the morning, I guess, to be at work. He had to be there at about 6 o'clock, and I think I had to be there about 6:30. And the morning went something like this. I would get up, stagger down the steps, go downstairs, heat up water, actually take a bath, and put the coffee on, and I'd say, Russ, it's time to get up. And he'd say, what time is it? And stupid me would say, oh, it's 4:20. I'd go about getting ready. A few minutes later, I'd say, Russ, it's time to get up. And he'd say, what time is it? I'd say, well, it's 4:30. Well, a few minutes later, I've gone out and fed the dogs and gotten everything else ready that needs to go, and I'm, Russ, it's time to get up. What time is it? It's 4:45. This went on every single morning. Now, men, you may not be able to relate to this, but women, I know you can. So one morning I thought, I've had enough of this, so I got up, got ready. You okay?
Yeah. Reliving the moment.
Got ready, said, Russ, it's time to get up. And he says, what time is it? And I said, it's time to get up. That was the first, the last, and the only time I called him that day. Now, Mount Sherman is approximately 25 miles from Harrison. And I got in the car and I left. But I was nice. I stopped in and told Tom on the way into my job that Russ is probably going to be a little bit late today. We only had one car at the time. So he had to go down and grovel to the neighbors and tell them why he needed a ride to Harrison at 6 o'clock in the morning. So break them guys from sucking eggs. Do you want your birthday present now?
That's up to you.
Do you want me to read the card out loud, or would you like to savor it yourself?
Go ahead and read it.
You sure?
Yeah, go ahead.
This is one of those cards that you buy and you think, why did I buy that, and who in the world can I give it to?
What time is it?
This is George W. Bush, and this is not meant to offend anybody. Please don't be offended.
Oh, don't read it then.
George W. Bush and Dick Cheney were having lunch at a restaurant near the Capitol. Dick orders the heart-healthy salad. George W. leans over to the waitress and says, "Honey, could I have a quickie?" The waitress is horrified and says, "Mr. President, I thought you would bring in a new era of morals and virtues to the White House. I'm sorry I ever voted for you," and she storms off. Dick leans over to the president and says, "George, I think it's pronounced quiche." Hope your birthday's everything you ordered.
Thank you.
C-bond denture adhesive. Voice of Metamucil. Should I use that, Dr. Terry?
Last, anyone else? Okay, now it's Russ's turn to kind of rebut. I could have thought of a few other things to say, but then I kind of remembered that when things don't work, or I can't get something fixed right, I can usually pick up the phone and call across the road. And I really don't want to mess that up. I mean, yeah, there is a point. I mean, at my age, I have learned that sometimes it's better to be quiet. So now it's Russ's turn. Oh, in case you don't know, this is him.
Of course, you know me, I don't go anywhere without coffee. Well, first thing I want to say for the people that are here tonight, and some of them I know that couldn't be here tonight, most nearly everybody in this room, if you know them personally, you know you have somebody that if for any reason at 2 o'clock in the morning you were in a bad strait somewhere and needed help, most nearly everybody in this room that I know personally wouldn't ask anything other than where are you and how long would it take me to get there. And I honestly believe that about everybody in this room. You're all wonderful people. You should give yourselves a hand. I have a low tolerance for bullshit, I'll tell you that right now. And you people are the best people in the world, and that's why I love each and every one of you. In the past 50 years, I have been able to come acquainted with a lot of the people in this room, and Jamie and I, we go back a long ways, and we've had a lot of fun together. And Jamie, I love you to death. Think the world of you. Bill, I love you too. Darla, love you too. She's a sweetheart. And my girlfriend over there, Shauna with a J, you should wave. Lila, all of you. Terry, Kathy. And I appreciate all of you being here tonight. It is a good cause. Hospice of the Ozarks is a great organization, and all this money will go to hospice patient care. And I have seen firsthand what hospice does for families. It's an incredible job they do. I salute them. When you're with a loved one and a death is going to be imminent, it's really difficult for families to accept that. Hospice workers really do step forward and try to prepare a family for the imminent. And seeing it firsthand, I was really touched by the work that they do. So your money is going to go to a good cause. And there are people in this room who have given obscene amounts of money to hospice. And I don't want to mention any names to embarrass them. But it is a good cause, and if you ever have an opportunity to help hospice out, do that. And I appreciate Tom Arnold for being senile enough to forget that I had worked there before and rehiring me this last time. Appreciate that, Tom. Yeah, another 10 years I'll forget that I worked there and I'll just stay home. So that'll work out pretty good. No, but I appreciate everybody, and I appreciate my parents for coming from Tulsa tonight, and I appreciate my wife's parents for coming over tonight as well. Let's give them a big hand. Now, is there anything else, Toby?
Oh, there's a lot.
Is there a lot?
Look up Laura to try to fill you in on what's coming down.
Okay, but I do appreciate everybody for coming out tonight, and if you see anybody that didn't make it out and did donate money, tell them you appreciate that, and I do appreciate each and every one of you for coming out tonight.
Well, Russ, I don't think it gets any better than that when you've got a room full of friends who really, really care. And I appreciate what you said about hospice, because we do a very good, loving, rewarding job, as hard as it might be for our staff to do it. Somebody has to. And we have an awesome staff at Hospice of the Hills, and we do have some very, very good backers, but every dollar means as much to us as every $10,000. So remember that when you see hospice projects going on, remember you don't have to give big loads of money, although I will not turn it down. But every dollar means as much to us as $10,000 or $100,000, and it does a lot of good work. I guess my job is this evening to quickly do some thank yous. I hope you enjoyed the supper. Give a warm welcome for Toby. She did all the cooking. When we're done here tonight with the thank yous, I hope that I want you to get your money's worth tonight. I want you to stick around. If you want more food, there's more food. We'll be happy to give it for you. The desserts are on the back table. We're going to have Russ go over and cut his birthday cake. We're going to have the band play, and we can dance and enjoy the music. During their break, we're going to have some door prize drawings. That's the little blue ticket that you got when you came in. You do have to be here to get the prizes. And then the band will play and take us out through the evening. If you've not heard this band, you're in for some awesome music. And I want to thank them for coming, by the way. And that's a Snopes Brothers band. Okay, first of all, if the tickets that you got that look like this may have been in blue. This caricature of Russ was drawn by a good friend of ours, Jim Ruff of Ruff Welding, and is he still sitting? There he is, over there in the purple shirt. Jim did the drawing for us, and I want to say thank you. I also want to say thank you to some of our sponsors who helped cover the cost of our evening this evening, which is Bank of America, First Federal Bank, Harps Market in Green Forest, Edwards Grocery, Southern Moon Cottage in Harrison, Presley's Jubilee in Branson, Old Main Street Trader, Cindy Harness with the Mary Kay products, Cheryl Franklin, who made that beautiful birthday cake with the cool Harley on it, KCWD, our hospice volunteers and staff, and of course you for being here. And I would like for my staff and my volunteers to stand if they're still in here as I call their name. Paul Drummond. Did Paul go home? Paul works in our office. John and Chris Helfrich, and they're back there where the other drink is. Elisa Tolbridge. Elisa, she's a volunteer also. By the way, Chris back there is one of our aides. Michelle Riggs, our hospice nurse. Shirley Smothers and Jessica Smothers. Shirley was our hospice volunteer coordinator and bereavement coordinator. Yesterday was her last day, but she is still a volunteer. Jeannie and Gary Gross, and they've been picking up the dishes, and I think Jeannie had to leave. And Gary's a friend of ours. Debbie Davenport, she's also a nurse. She back there? My daughter, Karina King, wherever she's at, I think she's out. Is she here? She's out roaming around trying to help stuff. Sandy Martin, one of our aides. Debbie Schaefer is an RN and our director of home health and hospice. And I cannot do it without this staff and these volunteers. We have several more, but without their work that they do for our hospice patients, it wouldn't be the hospice program that it is. So I say thank you to you very, very much. Again, Toby's always got her finger up at me. Constantly got her finger up at me. At least he's not pointing at me.
One of the things that we have found, Lori and I have been working together now about 3 or 4 years. Now, we're almost ready to end this year. We've got the appraisal fair coming up in October. But when we do things, we found a long time ago, small committees work. Now this event was put on by Linda Peters. Stand up, Linda.
We call her Pete.
Pete. Shirley Smothers, who's still in the back, who even though she's left hospice is staying on with the fundraising board and our volunteer, and Lori and I, and Lauren Tepper works for the Times, but was called out of town on a family emergency. But basically, this is the group that put it on. We have great support when we go out to see all of you and when we do all the running around and things. But the nucleus of all this, and we could not do it if we didn't work so well together. And I just want to thank them all for all the help. And I have to thank Shirley's group, who, if you were here earlier today, you would have found mounds of bread and mounds of vegetables being, what did we do? Dissected. I mean, because everything was done here on the spot to get this ready for you tonight. So I just want to thank the committee very much. And my buddy, Laura.
It looks to me like, Russ, you have a few gifts you need to open, I think. Are we good? Nurses, are we going to hook Russ up to this IV? Did someone bring a needle? A large 18 gauge, 16 gauge maybe? I hope you stay and enjoy the music. Like I said, there's dessert back there. You can't miss this. Russ, we need you to cut your cake in a minute, darling. Can I keep the Harley?
Yeah.
Not that I don't have hundreds of them.
I give women anything they want.
You give women anything they want? That's what's getting you in trouble, dude. Ladies and gentlemen, Snoop's Brothers Band.